Good evening. I would like to call to order the Keizer City Council. It is Monday, December 3rd, 2018, and ask our city recorder to please call roll.
Councilor Ryan? Here. Councilor Reed?
Here.
Mayor Clark?
Here.
Council President Parsons?
She is excused.
Councilor Freeman? Here. Councilor Herrera? Here. Councilor Anderson?
Here.
And Youth Councilor Ferris?
Here.
Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce our Cub Scout Wolf and Bear Pack 12. If you gentlemen would like to come in, and they are going to introduce themselves and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right.
So here's our,
Oh, that's cool.
if you want to come across the front there. Look at that.
How cool is that?
All right. So tonight you are here at City Hall for a special program, are you? Can someone tell us what class you're doing tonight? Who's doing a class?
Why are you here?
Yeah. They're easier to talk until you put a microphone in front. They're like, I don't know. All right. Well, we're glad to have you with us here tonight, and thank you for helping us. And would you please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? And the flag is over here, gentlemen. And ladies, would you please start us off? Go ahead.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful experience tonight at City Hall. Thank you for coming down. Thank you. Merry Christmas. All right. Let's thank our scouts for leading us tonight. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. All right. We'd like to now go to our special orders of business, and we have a presentation tonight by Mr. Kevin Mannix, and he's going to talk to us about the Brooks Intermodal proposal. So welcome. We're glad to have you here tonight. This is something that we've talked about previously, and I'll let Mr. Maddox introduce the proposal, but this is something that the Keizer City Council did write a letter of endorsement for this project. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, members of the council, city officials. I'm Kevin Mannix. I'm from that Salem city to the south. I'm an attorney in this area, and that's my usual job. But tonight I'm coming to you in my capacity as the executive director of the Oregon Port of Willamette. The Oregon Port of Willamette is a new organization that has been created to present the project sponsorship for the establishment of an intermodal facility in Brooks, Oregon. What we mean by intermodal is simply a facility where you can bring your product by truck and have it placed on a train to be moved and shipped, or brought in by train and placed on a truck. The purpose of the intermodal facility is especially designed in this area to allow farmers to move their product by rail instead of by truck to Seattle and Tacoma in order to be shipped overseas. But it will also give farmers in this area the opportunity to move their product to the interior of the United States. On the other hand, it also allows our importers to bring their product in through Seattle and Tacoma, bring it by rail into Brooks, and then trucked locally, so that we're diminishing congestion on the highways, especially congestion in the Portland area. There's a reduction of CO2 emissions. There is a more efficient use of fossil fuels. So all around, we're trying to help the business of our farmers by giving them a predictable, reliable shipping system which is cost effective, but also help the economics of the environment by reducing CO2 emissions and by reducing our highway use to the extent that we can by making use of rail. I will pause and ask, Madam Mayor, I do have this capability to speak too long, and I'm thinking I should keep this down to 5 to 10 minutes. Is that fair to say? I won't give you the 30-minute Rotary speech, although I did recently appear in front of Keizer Rotary, and they got the 30-minute version. I have provided you in advance with a 5-page background summary of information, and we've made copies available for the public. The city recorder, Tracy Davis, was kind enough to assist me with that, so anyone that wants to grab a copy can pick one up. And also, we do have a full copy of the 540-page proposal on the website under Oregon Port of Willamette. These are proposals, I say these proposals because there's also a proposal for Millersburg, which is our competitor for this grant. Millersburg and Brooks are both competing for the grant. On September 27, we provided our full project proposals to the state, and we've put ours online so folks can see it. We've received questions from a third-party reviewer for the Oregon Department of Transportation, and we responded to those questions in detail on November 15th. The review showed us that they've actually read the 540-page proposal and had a lot of follow-up questions. That our response and the questions is also presented on the Oregon Port of Willamette website. I have had 5 slides put together because I wanted to give you a pretty good quick idea about the positive impact for the city of Keizer that we're discussing with this project. And this first slide, which is up there, and a little hard to see with the lights, but I think it's bright enough to be visible. Oh, thank you.
All you gotta do is ask.
What you can see up there is an overview of the Brooks area. I'll mention quickly, Brooks is not incorporated. It's part of Marion County, and so we are operating with the Marion County Commission and all of the officials of Marion County in this process. This unincorporated community, if you look at the map, the major elements that I want to point out is Brook Lake Road, which runs from east to west, and that's near the bottom of that slide. You've got, of course, I-5 running north to south. You've got River Road running north to south, right adjacent to the Portland and Western Railroad. That's on the left side, the western side. On the eastern side, you've got in green the Union Pacific Railroad, and a bit to the right of it, a bit to the east, is Highway 99E North. Now, there are 2 phases to what we're talking about here, and phase 1 is actually to the west, along the Portland and Western line, north of Antique Powerland. And I'll show you, if I may show you the next slide. I'm going to have a little help here, making sure I push the right button, I don't screw this up. This is a more detailed view of what would be phase 1 of this project, and that is where we are applying for the grant. Phase 1 is located to the north of Antique Powerland, and you see that curved design there. That is, the top part of that design runs parallel. It's a track parallel to the Portland and Western. Then it curves down to the south and west and back up to the north. That is a 7,000-foot rail line that is connected by, properly connected to the Portland and Western line, but is designed to be far enough away from that line so there's plenty of clearance for a future passenger train service, commuter train service, whatever you would like. We've made sure all of the design here, while it's designed to deal with freight in this facility, is also compatible with any future development of commuter rail in the area. That entire center part of it includes the capability to put in a transload facility, which allows you to bring in product on, say, a 53-foot trailer and move it into a 40-foot container that is generally necessary in order to transport by international shipping, that you use 20 or 40-foot international containers. I don't want to get too detailed about that, but back and forth, we want trucks to be able to come in swiftly. And there is, if you look at a red, it's like in a red outline, just to the west of Antique Powerland, we've designed a road from Brook Lake Road into the site so that we will not be crossing over onto River Road. And the idea is that within that facility, trucks will be able to arrive and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, deliver either their cargo or their containers and promptly, swiftly, and efficiently leave the facility. They can do the same to pick up cargoes. In designing all of this, what we've tried to do is to be sensitive to rail crossing issues, to be sensitive to transportation system improvements. We already know that Brook Lake Road needs to be widened and improved. We know that the intersection with River Road needs to be improved. We know that those I-5 ramps need to be improved. What we are seeking in this process is to succeed by getting a $23.75 million grant from the state to build this intermodal facility. But as part of the construction plan, we will also be applying to the federal government for matching transportation system grants. We know Marion County cannot afford the improvements that are needed on Brook Lake Road. And we know that the ODOT priority system for improvements on I-5 and its ramps would leave us all hanging for the next 10 years to see whether or not the Brook Lake Road and I-5 ramps would be improved. Our intention is to seek federal matching grant funds so that the River Road, Brook Lake Road intersection will be improved, probably with a light, probably with a widening, working with the local property owners to see Brook Lake Road itself widened, at least from River Road to I-5 and preferentially over time all the way over the 99E. There needs to be at least a center left turn lane to see the ramps from I-5 onto Brook Lake Road widened with at least a right turn lane and then a center and left turn lane with a traffic signal at the top of each so that we have a safer system. And yes, 10 years from now when ODOT comes up with the budget funds, they can come in and they can put in the nice cloverleaf they would like to design. We don't want to be in the way of that. But right now, we already have congestion in this area, and our intention is that while we will not add very much to the congestion because of the highway studies we've done and the spacing out of our traffic, we want to be good citizens, good members of the community, and improve all of this. So we see that as a dynamic thing, which I think is going to be helpful for Keizer as a gateway to I-5, helpful to the farmers and businesses in the community as a gateway to the world, as well as to the United States in terms of freight. But also, we are making sure that this project is designed so that eventually your Keizer station could have a commuter station to run a commuter line from Keizer to Wilsonville, to Beaverton, perhaps even to Portland, depending on the design. There is a commuter line running right now from Wilsonville to Beaverton. And that is on the Portland and Western line. And the line I'm talking about right now that we're starting with is the Portland and Western line. We will be working on improvements to that line, partnering with the Portland and Western, and we have already developed a wonderful working relationship with that short line railroad. So what I think you're going to see is if we can get this grant, you will see the initiation of a dynamic process where part of this is not just building the facility to deal with the freight needs and the transload and the intermodal capacity, but also to deal with the transportation needs of the community so that we're opening the door to meet the needs right now of the Keizer community, the greater area community, and we think that's what it's all about. I'll wrap up by saying that tomorrow morning at 8:30, I'm starting a phone conference with designers and consultants about how do we start designing proposed designs for Brook Lake Road and for I-5. And yes, we'll be talking to ODOT's Highway Division, we'll be talking to Marion County, and in that process, we are going to be listening to the community. That entry road I described from Brook Lake Road into our facility, that's the third version. And we brought out the first version and we're talking to folks from Brooks and they said, well, no, you can't change it this way. So we came out with the second version. Then we talked to some more folks. They said, no, can you move it this way? We moved it over. And now we have an entry road that everybody we've talked to says, this is good, this works for us, we like it. And that includes our friends at Marion County Planning. And I'm using that as an example of how through this process, we're not going to be throwing down a design and saying, take it or leave it. We're going to be saying, what do you think about this? How does this work? And we're in a flexible position at the beginning of this to try to make this work. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. So questions, I'll start with Councilor Herrera, and then I've got Councilor Ryan.
Give me a second. Yeah.
And by the way, I didn't even show the rest of the slides.
But first of all, welcome, Kevin. Good to see you again. And it looked like it's well thought out, and I like the vision that I've read, and I like the support that you have so far. And the thing that really turned me on was the possibilities for training for Chemeketa, not to mention the infrastructure that's going to be needed. And then talking about the future commuter possibilities, that is kind of big in terms of saving in other areas. But I I think it's going to benefit not only the agriculture community, but the business community in general. And I think it sounds like it's, I like the vision of the whole thing. So I just want to compliment you on the way the presentation, and it looked like it was pretty well thought out and addressed and pretty much supported by the right people. Am I reading something wrong here?
Councilor Herrera, I think you're not reading anything wrong. We've worked what I'll call the community process, we've worked the government process, and we've worked the professional process to try to bring together all these elements. And the best thing I've done all along is I've said to everybody, I've only been involved in transportation. This month, it's 3 years. I got started with this because some farmers started to talk to me about the need for container shipping and the issues that were arising. And every day when I meet with people, I remind them, I'm a novice. Let me listen to you. What more can we learn from you about this process? And even today, I was meeting with 3 advocates of passenger rail. I took them on a tour around, and I said, so what do you think? What else should we be doing? Because these are gentlemen who've been involved in this for 30 or 40 years. And every conversation has been an instruction for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question. Can you give me the exact email so that we can use our social media to send people to the website?
Yes, it simply is Oregon Port of Willamette. I don't know what the www is. It's Oregon Port of Willamette.
All spelled out, everything spelled out?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
All right. Councilor Freeman.
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't. Oh, Laura does. Okay. Sorry, Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I just wanted to inquire as to the timeline for this. When is this grant due to be submitted? When is the decision going to be? When are we looking at construction? What is the timeline on this?
A perfect question. In fact, in case anyone else wants to know, I brought a timeline sheet that I prepared today thinking, well, we need to start being prepared for that. This appropriation was approved in the 2017 Transportation Act. Pre-proposals were required in December of 2017. We were one of 5 that were turned in. 2 were chosen as finalists, the Millersburg proposal and our Brooks proposal, on February 12th of this year. We then signed an agreement with ODOT on May 3 of this year, where they provided us with some grant funds to continue working up our plans. On September 27, we turned in that 540-page proposal. By the way, I've got a copy in my car if anybody wants to challenge me on it. But usually we hand them out by flash drive or send people to the website. So September 27, we turned in the comprehensive proposal. November 15th, we responded to follow-up questions through ODOT. Now it's pending in front of the Tioga Group, which is a third-party reviewer, which has to get in their review comments within a couple of weeks. It then goes to a review committee for ODOT and for the Oregon Economic Development folks, Business Oregon, and we expect that they'll be doing their reviews into December and January. Then the Oregon Transportation Commission, 5 persons appointed by the governor, will make the final selection decision, we think in January or February. Assuming we get the grant, if we got the permits fast enough, we have 9 options to purchase the necessary real estate in place. And we would begin exercising those options. If Marion County, look, I love Marion County, but the permit process can sometimes be a bit slow. We're going to work with them as fast as we can. With an expedited permit process, we could break ground next summer. As early as May, but we really think realistically into the summer, and we would want to have this facility ready to operate by the summer of 2020. That is the track that we're on, assuming we get the grant in January, February.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Also, kind of a follow-up question. I know this is a little perhaps tricky to do in a brevity, but what makes this proposal better than the Millersburg one? What do we have going for us in this proposal that is better?
I'm going to be a little catty and say the Millersburg proposal starts with having an industrial park that someone else owns that you want to buy and you want to figure out how to leverage it. Because I was helping Millersburg at the beginning. International Paper owns that site, and they're trying to figure out properly in the Millersburg area what to do with it. And so we started out, where is the best site? And we were looking at Millersburg, working with Millersburg, then we were looking at Lebanon, worked up a proposal for Lebanon. We ended up choosing Brooks on the advice of experts that this is the best site. The topography is flat. The topography in Millersburg is not flat. We have a rail connection with the Portland and Western, where the Portland and Western owns the tracks and will be invested in this. Down in Millersburg, Portland and Western does not own the tracks. Burlington Northern owns the tracks. And if it succeeds, I'm just speaking openly here, my view is Portland and Western be a little nervous about Burlington Northern saying, well, your lease is up, we're taking over. In terms of business interests, we think we've got an investment from the Portland and Western. When people look at the documents we've submitted, we have hands-on build-up commitment from the Portland and Western, owned by the Genesee and Wyoming, with the capability to join up with these trains with Union Pacific or Burlington Northern. Millersburg is focused on the Union Pacific connection, and if the Union Pacific connection doesn't work out for them, it would be a long haul to an alternative. We have a connection that will work with us for connecting with Union Pacific or Burlington Northern to get to the north. And finally, I think that in terms of differentiation, this is a free enterprise project where we have people that have invested their own money in making this happen, and they're applying for government assistance. But the project is a free enterprise project, and most of these kinds of projects around the United States are free enterprise. Ultimately, if there's ever a Brooks Port District or something like that, that would be your government entity. But the facility will be run and operated as a free enterprise operation, which means we need to make sure it makes a profit.
All right, thank you very much. Councilor Anderson, do you have a, Councilor Anderson?
I do.
All
Yes,
right.
thank you, Madam Mayor. Kevin, thank you so much for coming, and this is a really quite exciting project. I've heard a lot about it beyond tonight, so it's interesting to see this all coming together here, and I wish you success. The economic impact for this area will be extraordinary if that site is selected. So two questions for you. One, you referenced Union Pacific Railroad. I know in one iteration there was some potential involvement with that line, and then now it seems like you're focusing more on the set of tracks on the west side of the freeway. So that's question one. Question two, can you describe impact down in Keizer? Okay, we've been focusing in Brooks, but do you all see any impact to Keizer, traffic-wise or what have you?
On the first question, Councilor Anderson, actually, you've helped me a lot because I didn't even talk about Phase 2, which is to the east of I-5. We've talked a lot to NORPAC about the acreage that they have there. They're immediately adjacent to Union Pacific. What we've discovered is Union Pacific as a Class 1 railroad it's an evolutionary process to work with the Union Pacific to get them interested in and we have a nice letter from them about their willingness to work with us. But we didn't have them coming to our office and sitting down with us and talking to us face to face and bringing in their engineers to work out plans. They're kind of waiting to see what happens. But Phase 2, with the success of Phase 1, would be a direct link with Union Pacific, working with NORPAC and other properties, so that we actually have two intermodal facilities, one that's directly connecting with Union Pacific, particularly if you want to go south. Union Pacific is a very good line to go south, and we can envision using Long Beach and Oakland as ports of entry. But what we really like about the Portland and Western side is it also can run south within the Willamette Valley and connect up with the Coos Bay rail line. And the Coos Bay rail line opens the door to the Port of Coos Bay becoming a gateway port for the Northwest, especially for Oregon. I won't give you the 5-minute speech about Coos Bay right now, but because I'm trying to pay attention to time. But we're excited about the potential to help Coos Bay be a major port for container shipping for Oregon and then for the Northwest. And as to the second question, I'm going to have to ask you to restate it because I had so much fun with the first question.
Do you see any impact
Keizer,
for
yes.
Keizer? Yeah.
First
I mean,
of all, in
not,
terms of
not economic, but traffic impacts or what have you.
well, the economics are that the farmers in this area will benefit from a good transportation system that's reliable to get them to their export ports or ultimately to the interior of the United States, because UP and BNSF run along the Columbia River and can take you anywhere to the interior. But in terms of business in the Keizer area, I think that River Road entry into Keizer is going to become significant. And as we talk about widening Brook Lake Road and giving you a better connection to I-5, right now, the Brook Lake Road connection to I-5 is significant for Keizer. We think it's going to continue to grow in significance. We think improving that interchange and improving Brook Lake Road and the River Road intersection will do a lot to help the fluidity of traffic for in and out of Keizer. Beyond that, though, putting in a commuter rail line using Keizer Station will give Keizer residents a great opportunity if they want to be commuters up to the Portland area. And we think our design of this facility and our working with Portland and Western has included consideration of that. So in terms of passenger traffic by commuter rail, and I'll pause and say, I know ODOT is looking at the Union Pacific line and the Amtrak connection as the main environmentally desirable line. That's fine. We ought to have both. And we can by connecting up at Wilsonville to Beaverton line down into Keizer Station. And yes, I'll tell my friends in Salem, down to Salem too. But I think that provides long-term a great opportunity for commuter traffic in the Willamette Valley by passenger rail. Whew, I can go on, but I'd say the businesses in Keizer ought to be ready for additional business when there's more ease of traffic across on Brook Lake Road and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I very much agree on the assessment of the impact of the Brook Lake interchange, because ostensibly that is our second interchange. And there are people from North Keizer that use that over trying to come down out of the wrong direction to get onto I-5. So improvements there are important to Keizer's future. We do have a seat at the table regarding the Brook Lake interchange, and we have talked with ODOT, and the full interchange area management plan is now entering the horizon for planning. But you're right, there's a significant time frame in between. So thank you for this. It is important for our economic and transportation future. Just so folks know, and I know that Mr. Mannix, you know this, the Keizer Station, when we put in the road that goes down, it's Keizer Station Boulevard. Is that the right one? Anyway, the overpass there is strong enough to support a rail transportation platform. It was designed that way. So Mr. Epley, Mr. Kistler, and many of our planners thought ahead that if this was a possibility, we want to be ready for it. So I'm very thankful for that as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I'll mention I will be stepping out, but I will stay out in the lobby in case anybody needs to check with me for a few minutes. And of course, we're available at any time, and I'm still in the book, but my office number is 503-364-1913, and I'm happy to talk to folks about this project.
All right, any further questions? Thank you so much for coming. We look forward to a positive outcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I have a bet with the Millersburg mayor. All right. Let's go then to committee reports. We have the Volunteer Coordinating Committee recommendations for appointment for Planning Commission, Parks Advisory Board, Keizer Public Arts Commission, Traffic Safety Bikeways Pedestrian Committee, and the Youth Liaison for Keizer Planning Commission. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is this on? Yes. Volunteer Coordinating Committee met on November 15, 2018 to review applications and interview candidates for openings on several committees. The committee is recommending the following applicants for appointments. Parks Advisory Board, Ben Hiddle for position number 7, term expiring December 31, 2021. Planning Commission, Jeffrey Watson for position number 7, term expiring September 30th, 2021. Public Arts Commission, Felicia Squires for position number 7, term expiring June 30th, 2021. Traffic Safety Bikeways Pedestrian Committee, David Dempster for position number 6, term expiring 31 December 2021. And Youth Committee Liaison to the Planning Commission, Christopher Wolfert, term expiring June 30th, 2019. It is recommended City Council accept these recommendations. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on the staff report? Councilor Freeman.
I recommend that the Keizer City Council accept the recommendations of the Volunteer Coordinating Committee and appoint the applicants as outlined above. Do I need to repeat them?
No.
No. Perfect.
So we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council accept the recommendation of the Volunteer Coordinating Committee and appoint the applicants as outlined in the staff report. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously with one absent. And I want to thank everyone who came out for volunteering for our committees and commissions. This is a very important part of how Keizer does governance, self-governance together. So we appreciate you very much. All right, is there anybody here from a Keizer committee to give a report? I didn't get any blue slips, but I could have missed something. Okay, then we will go on then to public testimony. This time is provided for citizens to address the council on any matters other than those on the agenda scheduled for a public hearing. We have 4 public hearings tonight: the solid waste and recycling services rates, House Bill 4006, severely rent burden status of City of Keizer, the Folk Keizer liquor license new application, and the Keizer Mart liquor license change of ownership application. So if you're here to talk to us about one of those, you should have signed in on the sheet specific for that public hearing. And if not, then you should have turned in a blue sheet. So, or I will make a call for additional people who would like to speak with us. So with that, I do have one person who has signed in for public testimony. That would be Sherry Gottfried. So come on down. And if you would just start with your name and city of residence, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Councilors. I am Sherry Gottfried. I work and reside.
Pull a microphone closer.
I work and reside in Keizer, Oregon. Would this be better?
Perfect.
Okay. I'm here tonight on behalf of a couple of things. I work at the Grass Hut, as everyone knows, in Keizer on Cherry Avenue. And I gave a report to you earlier this year regarding the effects of the Iris Festival to our business. And I provided you a copy then, and this evening I also provided another copy for you as a reminder. I would also like to invite the new counselors that will be the elect coming in, that I have copies for them too if they would like to pick them up. My reason for coming in tonight is just to let you guys, remind you all of that we have an Iris Festival coming up soon. I did go to the November chamber meeting at the Board of Keizer Directors, asking to be put on the December agenda, so I'm waiting for that invitation. I've been told that I will get that opportunity to give them the same presentation. My main issues are parking, safety, bicycles, and lack of loss of business. And I just want to reiterate the fact that it is a safety issue with the bicycles. We are asking them to go down a mandated by the state Cherry Avenue on a bike trail that we say, no, we now have to go down River Road on. In the bike trail, the Willamette Valley Scenic Bikeway Trail, they do suggest that you stay off of River Road for safety issues. Unfortunately, during the Keizer Fest, we do have them go on to River Road. There is safety, number one, with the bikes. Number two, safety, is where we put the sign for the street block, local access only on Cherry Avenue. It sits right there at the lovely intersection of Alder Drive. I want you guys, if you get the opportunity this year, and it does get to be put in that situation, I would invite you all to go down there and try to drive through. And make sure you slow, really slow, because everybody coming off of Alder, turning onto Cherry Avenue, assumes you, going forward, are not turning, or are turning and not going forward. I came near miss every day I was going to work to T-boning somebody because they assumed I was turning right. I was going forward. They automatically pulled out right in front of me. That is a big safety issue. There was 3 confirmed accidents that weekend, and I'm sure there was many more that I was unaware of. Every one of my staff that worked that weekend all had the same near misses. We do need to figure that out, please, for our safety. Parking. This last year, the street was closed at Alder, Cherry Avenue was, down to Manbrin, and it was stated part of that was used for ADA compliance parking. As you see by the pictures in there, there was not one ADA sign anywhere on that street, as per the agreement by the chamber. I want to make sure that there is ADA parking this year because that is a violation. I am a disabled person myself. I would be really upset if I had to try and drive down there and not be able to have access to it. Being at the Grass Hut, I've seen numerous walkers, wheelchairs, and little old people with double sticks trying to walk down there. We really need to make sure that they have a safe way to get in and out. Parking and safety are a big deal. Last but not least, before the Iris Festival, the month before, we averaged it out, we were losing a lot of money. I don't mind losing a little bit of money, but losing a lot of money, we got to figure something else out, you guys. I have been so successful at my job. We've almost doubled what we did earlier this year. So we're now up at $3,100 a day on our average sales right now. I have put in a survey for all people coming into our store. It has one question. Were you affected by the Iris Festival in 2018 being on its current location, Cherry Avenue? There is a box for yes and a box for no. And if you marked yes, please write down why. And at the bottom, I've collected their names, addresses, and phone numbers so that you guys can have these. To date, I have about 36 of them in my store. I'm going to collect these continually and share them with all of you. Right now, there is, I want to say 18 that said yes, they were affected out of those 36. So we're about at a 50-50 split right now. But I just want you guys to be aware. Please read the handout I provided you again, Council-elect. I invite people to please, please, please think twice about the permits before just assuming that it's already done and that they don't just have to ask for forgiveness, they get permission this time. That's all I have. Oh, and also, why not move it? I thought this years ago, you guys. We have a lot of spaces we could put it at where it's not an issue with safety, where it's not an issue with parking, and where it's not an issue at all.
All right. Thank you very much. Any questions for Sherry? So thank you for the information. I made a note of your 5 points, and these will be issues that we will continue to work with the Iris Festival directors or co-chairs, who are Dave Wallery and Scott White. So I will defer to them as they are working through the plans for this coming year. And I know they are also aware of making the site more accessible and safer. And I look forward to seeing what they come back with, working with our staff on those designs.
Perfect.
So
Thanks, you
thank you
guys.
for your helping us stay aware. Appreciate
Really
it.
appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you, you too. All right, is there anybody else who wanted to address the council on any issue other than the public hearings? Okay, so then we will go to our first public hearing tonight, and that is on the solid waste and recycling services and rates. And so do I need to reopen, or the public hearing was left open, so I'm just continuing, correct? All right, so public hearing continued from our last session. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the last City Council meeting, Lawrence Sanitation Services and Valley Recycling Disposal, our 2 franchise solid waste haulers and recyclers, proposed a rate increase in their fee structure in response to the significant changes that have occurred in the recycling markets this last year. They provided 3 options for the council to review for rate adjustment strategies. City Council continued the public hearing until this evening to provide additional opportunity for citizens to provide input. The haulers sent each city councilor a link to their and Marion County's rate and recycling information for electronic distribution, and the Keizer Times was present at the last city council meeting, and I know that they did publish an article on the matter. The haulers are here to provide additional information, and they will do that in just a sec. Staff recommends City Council continue the public hearing, take additional public input regarding the solid waste rate increase request, and evaluate the appropriateness of approving a rate increase. Unless there are further questions, council can then close the hearing. I recommend the council grant one of the options requested, however, the choice of which option is a policy matter for the council. If the council agrees that a requested increase is warranted, it is then recommended City Council direct staff to prepare the appropriate order to bring back at the next City Council meeting, authorizing the rate increase as allowed for within the applicable solid waste hauler franchise agreements. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And would the haulers like to come do your thing?
So what we'll do is we'll have this presentation, and then we'll go to the list of people who have signed up to testify.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council, for the time this evening. I brought Reed Carlson in, and he's going to do a little presentation for us on some education that he does out in the public. He's our public educator and marketing guy.
Welcome.
Madam Mayor, City Council members, good evening. My name is Reed Carlson. Yeah. I'm the Marketing and Recycling Coordinator for Mid-Valley Garbage and Recycling Association. One of my roles is to go out and educate people about how to recycle right in Marion County. Even before the changes last year, there have been a lot of questions related to solid waste and materials management in Marion County. One of these is, what does curbside recycling actually look like? What can the driver see when they're dumping their carts into the trucks? And then finally, what kind of plastics can I recycle currently? So to answer some of these questions, I've assembled some slides that are now part of my public education slideshow and presentation. So anybody who has seen my presentations before, it might have changed a little bit. So I've continually adding and removing based on what kind of questions come up from these presentations. So the first set of slides is related to the carts, and these are actual pictures from a local hauler, and I've highlighted all of the good and bad items in each of these carts. So as you can see in this picture, there's film plastic, which has never been allowed. That's a air packaging from an Amazon box, and then there's also a plastic envelope. And on that plastic envelope, if you can see close enough, it actually says, please drop off in the store instead of at curbside. And these are new smart labeling system, and it's really exciting to see this, so we can move away from the resin code that's printed actually on the top right of that film plastic bubble. And that was really confusing because for a while the resin code was meaning that it was recyclable, but you can see that this is not the case, and not all plastics are in fact recyclable. Glass is also another item that has never been allowed in the mixed recycling. It is, of course, always recyclable in that red bin that's next to your cart, and it's a perfectly recyclable item, but when it goes into the mixed recycling, it is not considered recyclable. As you can see, there is still good material in this cart. Any sort of paper and cardboard is still great material. And this one, this cardboard box has a plastic window and styrofoam inside. Currently, this cardboard box would be considered a contaminated item because these styrofoam and plastic windows aren't going to come off automatically. It requires you as the customer to remove these items and throw them in the garbage. Once you remove the styrofoam and the plastic window, that cardboard box is perfectly recyclable. Again, with the plastic window up top, it's considered a non-program plastic, meaning it's not a bottle or a jug. I'll define those later on in the presentation. And again, plastic milk jugs are perfectly recyclable, as you can see in the bottom left. In the next slide, there is a plastic hanger in the top right. This is considered a non-program plastic, meaning it's not a bottle or a jug. Food has never been recyclable in the mixed recycling, as well as this paper plate. The laminated sheet at the bottom is essentially just a plastic item. The paper cannot be recovered when it becomes laminated. Even though it still looks like paper, it is not a recyclable item. As you can see throughout the cart, there is a dryer sheet, which I didn't mark. That's not recyclable, but there's still plenty of other cardboard and paper within this cart. So there is still a lot of recycling. These are only pictures of the top of the cart. The drivers often don't even see this because the lid should be closed. So what you see is actually in the next, I have a video, and you'll be able to see, once I switch it, what the driver actually sees when they're dumping a cart in. As you can see, he's stopped, he's pouring it in, and the material doesn't go away immediately. It can be pushed around. Unfortunately, you can't see a lot because of the large film plastic in the way, but this is where you're going to see a lot of the contamination, and the only time you're going to be able to see the bottom of a cart. So that's what I have prepared. I was supposed to bring a bunch of items to show you what plastics can and cannot be recycled. So I get to describe them, which is how I often have to describe them over the phone. So like I mentioned, bottles and jugs are the only plastic items that are allowed in the mixed recycling. These both have small openings compared to the base. Jugs typically have handles, and that's how you can tell. Jars are a rather confusing plastic item because they can look like a jar or a large mouth bottle, but oftentimes these have food contamination within them. So peanut butter and mayonnaise often have food left over within them. People don't rinse them out, and that food material can actually spread to other fibrous materials and make them non-recyclable. Tubs are another plastic that was removed recently. These are often made of different types of plastics, and people will stack them together. Other items will fall into tubs or jars, and once they get crushed together and can't be easily removed, that's when it becomes a contamination. So I will take any questions now.
All right, thank you very much. Questions at this point? Councilor Anderson.
Reed Anderson, Carlson, sorry, this is this running fun joke that John and I have. Thanks so much for coming tonight, Reed, really appreciate it. This is really helpful. I've sat through one of Reed's presentations before to my Rotary Club, and it's our Rotary Club, I should say, and really well done. I really have to tell you, I really appreciated this presentation. It really, like real life examples of this, and the video was eye-opening, say
Yeah,
the least.
I actually have way more pictures, and I just had to trim it down for some of these city council meetings, but there's a lot more that I can go into, and when I go out into the field in the future, it's definitely going to be around 10 slides of these actual pictures, and the arrows will be animated, so I'll have the audience sort of pick out from what they can see before I actually highlight it for them. So it is definitely a useful tool to be able to use these pictures.
Yeah, it is quite interesting to, as one gets educated about what is and is not allowed to be recyclable. But of course, as you showed in your slides there, there's just stuff that's going in there that ought not to be there ever,
Yeah.
period. So.
And there is the example of the kiddie pool, and there is an actual picture of that. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to know what organizations do you usually go around to give these presentations to, and how would people sign up for one if they wanted one for their organization, whether it be public or private or whatever?
Yeah, so a lot of the presentations that I do are neighborhood associations. I've done one in Keizer so far. I've got 3 planned for Salem within the next 2 weeks. And Rotary clubs, I've done Keizer, downtown Salem, and the Sunrise Salem. And those have all been, they've reached out to me and requested my presentation. I have started to reach out to the neighborhood associations to start planning these more. My only requirement essentially is to have over 5 people in attendance, just so I can make sure that I can reach as many people as I can. I have done even small apartment committees that are just concerned about their cart, and they've asked me to come out. To find my information, you can go to mrtrashrecycles.com, and you can find our contact information. Our office number is 503-390-4000. So, and they can direct that caller to me and sign up for anything.
Okay, do you ever do anything with the schools?
I have been at a few presentations. That is definitely going to be a future effort. Again, those have been any schools that reach out to me or Marion County Environmental Services. If Marion County Environmental Services cannot attend those, then I'm the second in line. But we do want to try and become one of those people or groups that we get reached out to for presentations.
Okay,
And
thank you.
those are really exciting presentations as well.
Thanks.
Councilor Freeman.
So I can attest that Reed has been to the West Keizer neighborhood in September. I'm looking at Carol, yes. So, which was great. So I would encourage Councilor Reed as the Southeast Keizer neighborhood representative. So Well, then we'll have to get some support to have 5 or more at that meeting so we can do a presentation. But it was really good because the presentation's great, but it was also the opportunity for Keizer residents to ask the questions that we all want to know, right? Does this get to go in there or does this not? I did talk with Reed and John earlier before the meeting to have Reed put something together so we can actually run something on Channel 23. Again, so when we aren't having our lovely faces plastered all over Channel 23, I just think it would be really good information. So if you can come up with something and work with staff to see how long that needs to be, I just think that would be something really beneficial. And I know you talked about pictures, because pictures I think help. I mean, obviously we're looking at what goes in there and we're all gasping up here as you were showing what's being dumped. And so I think too, in the message is if you're not sure, then it really needs to go in the trash can.
Right.
And I think that message would be helpful as well. Since I've had several presentations and, last month just really looking at, educating myself on what goes in the trash and what can be recycled. So I just think the more that we can have out and about, and if you're posting things on Facebook that we can all link together, I just think the more education is going to help everyone, and hopefully things will be recycled as they should be. So,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I really appreciate this as well, and more pictures, I think, really tell the tale. I've actually posted pictures as I've been out walking my dog, walking by a blue can with a large plastic garbage sack full of what this homeowner, I assumes is recyclable, in the blue can. The glass in there just scares the crap out of me because, people are going to get cut and hurt as these things are broken up, and people can get injured, and that concerns me greatly, that that caution, which has always been there, has been disregarded. So I hope a lot of education that we can do, not only to improve the waste stream, but also keep the workers safe. This is a significant safety issue, I would think. Question for you on cans, metal cans, soup cans, food cans. Yes, no, what condition?
Yeah, so I didn't touch on the paper or the metals. So tin and aluminum cans are perfectly recyclable. One thing that we suggest people to use with the soup cans is to leave the lids attached, because scrap metal was removed for the program because Garten Services was seeing a lot of scrap metal that was outside of their allowances, essentially. So they were seeing engine blocks, huge pieces of scrap metal, chainsaws, and that sort of thing. And those will break the sorting discs, and when that happens, it'll actually stop the line, so they can't process any material, which is obviously expensive, both with how much you're trying to work through, as well as getting new sorting equipment.
An
So it's
engine block?
apparently,
Wow.
yeah.
That took a lot of muscle to get that can in the first place.
Yeah. So it's really important. The rules are made because there's always going to be extreme cases, and sometimes those extreme cases can be very expensive to fix, essentially. So scrap metal was removed. So when a lid is detached, it's considered scrap metal. But if you leave it attached or put it at the bottom of a can and then crush the top, that's one way to keep that material together and keep other items from falling in that can. So.
Okay, good. And again, videos showing how to prepare materials, I think would be really helpful. We've been taught different things. It's kind of like CPR classes. You've been taught different things, depending on which decade you got your card, on what's appropriate, the counts and breaths and stuff like that. This reminds me a little bit of that because there's been changes over the years. So a video showing how to properly prepare materials, A, so the waste stream is really clean, but also B, so we keep our workers safe. From picking up the cans to sorting the materials and so forth. I think it would be very helpful. And most of us have social media, and more than happy to share it out and repeat as often as necessary.
Perfect. Yeah, another.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councilor Ryan and then back to Councilor Reed. Councilor Ryan?
Thank you. I'm curious, John, were you going to say something before you get up, or I wasn't sure if you're. John's like, I got nothing.
I'd be happy to.
Okay. No, I actually have a question for you then, if you're,
Okay.
but I didn't want to.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I wanted to wait if you were speaking. So I did follow through and do a lot of due diligence and really tried to talk with people, people I know, people I don't know. And a couple of the questions I had in talking about, finances versus, kind of the business challenges. And as a business owner, I do understand those business challenges, so I don't want to seem insensitive, but people ask me things like, well, why do they have new trucks if they, we have all these issues with recycling in China and it's hurting them financially, and, there's a lot of, I don't want to say misconceptions, but there's those kind of questions in the community of, watching the, the
So-
purchase of new trucks, things
So
like that.
we're going to continue to invest in Tier 4 emissions trucks to make this community cleaner. I know Mike at Valley does the same thing. Once you get behind in trucks, there's such a substantial investment that you could come up against a roadblock trying to get financing or trying to buy the trucks. So we're going to continue to invest in the trucks, invest in clean trucks that burn very clean. The trucks that we buy now are Tier 4 emissions. They're about 99% cleaner than the trucks of 10 years ago. So you don't see our trucks blowing out black smoke like the old ones used to do, and you could trick them into making them run. These won't run. I mean, they flat stop. So that's a reason why we continue to invest in trucks.
And I sure didn't have an answer for that, so.
Yeah.
I
that's
understand that.
yeah.
So I guess with that, the other question I have is, do you have an update on where things are at with that, finding a new business partnership that may not be China, or that's someone else? I mean, so that we're not, as citizens, paying the penalty of bad business overseas, not your bad business, but their practices. Is there something in the works? Where are we at with that for an update so that I can share that?
So, we most likely will see a rebound in the markets, but I don't know when that time is. We hope that we have some domestic markets for product within the next couple years, but that's evolving as we speak. So, I'm a little bit detached from the market piece of it. I did a little bit of research, so to follow up on, everybody upsizing in carts. 76% of the material as a blended that we pick up is paper and fiber. So what goes in your cart, would be the gray board, the cardboard, the newspaper, and paper, mixed paper. Plastic is 5%, metals are 3%, and then glass is 3% that goes in the cart. And then residuals, meaning non-program materials. So, we would classify residual and glass as non-program material. It's a total combined of 16%. So we end up with non-marketable product, 16% of it.
Thank you.
Okay, and Councilor Reed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to since it is the season and all for wrapping paper and gifts and so forth, and as people are getting ready to buy wrapping paper and so forth, what should we be looking at in terms of, is any of that recyclable, and how should people plan?
So one of the problems is there's so many different types of wrapping papers and ribbons and that sort of thing. So what you're really looking for is wrapping paper that's made out of 100% paper. A lot of times you'll have some that have glitter or some sort of foil on that, and that's not going to be recyclable at that point. So anytime it's made of 100% paper is really the best way to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have one more question, and then I'm going to call the people who have signed up. And that is, back in the day, the mantra was reduce, reuse, recycle. Recycle was third. And with so many things that were just easy to toss into the recycling can, I know I, for one, was not quite as diligent on my purchasing, and was just like, well, I can just toss this in recycling, I don't have to worry about it anymore. I've begun to do some rethinking on packaging that I'm purchasing or not. So is there also going to be opportunity to produce some materials to remind us to reduce and reuse, and then last resort, recycle?
Yeah, absolutely. Marion County Environmental Services is really focused on the reduce and the reuse portion because that is better for the environment and materials management as a whole to do, and also DEQ Department of Environmental Quality in Oregon is really focused on this task as well. So reduce, reuse, recycle is great. We also have keep items empty, clean, and dry. That's another one. When in doubt, throw it out. We see a lot of wishful recycling, and that's where you see these hangers in the recycling, because it is plastic, but it's not the right type of plastic, and it's not in the right form. So I think that's all of the phrases that we have so far that we like to get people to start repeating.
Yes, City Manager.
Just as a quick question, as a refresher, John, can you remind us which of the three options is the hauler's preference and why?
We were opposed to option 1, and we don't have a preference over option 2 or 3. It truly does not doesn't matter to us. The reason we put the 202 off to the side is for illustration purposes, so you guys we were transparent with you that you knew how much the recycling per customer was costing us. So that's really the only difference, pretty much. So,
Can you remind us, please, what the average per household was between options 2 and 3 on the increase?
the average.
Average increase per household. Do you remember? Wasn't there like a?
That's the financial guy over there. He's the guy
What's
that
he
did
doing
the-
over there?
I know. Well, I brought Reed up, so. I'll defer to Kevin.
I was hoping to stay in the audience today. So the most common size of service is the 35-gallon service. So for option 2, that would be a $4.45 increase. And for option 3, it would be $4.61 increase for those customers.
Okay, so they're relatively close.
Relatively close.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Reed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just, so nobody likes their trash rates to go up and rents to go up if that's correlated with and so forth. So what are our options if we do nothing here? What kinds of cuts are you going to have to make, and how is that going to affect your service if we don't approve a rate increase?
I want to take that one.
I guess I'll take that one. Well, we would definitely have to go back and rethink what's going on at this point in time. You know, the city, the DEQ requires a city of 4,000 to have recycling at the curb. So, you know, we haven't really got to that point. We, you know, I mean, that's not the way we think.
Well, and again, just as customers, you know, I think that's important to know that, you know, you're not just doing this to line your pockets. You're doing this as a response to market forces and so forth, and that it is going to affect service in some way or another if we don't step up and make up that difference.
One thing I know that has happened in other communities, in situations like this where we have something that's, you know, in international markets with the recycling, if there was a substantial change in that and there was revenue that was, you know, brought back to the haulers, then it's possible that in the future those rates actually could be reduced, because we look at these every year to see where the margin is, and if there was significant changes that dropped the costs that we experience, it's possible that rates would be reduced in the future.
Yeah, we actually do an annual cost of service study, and it is reviewed by multiple solid waste consultants and accountants. So there's about 4 people involved, Dr. Estel Harlan and Chris Bell out of the Portland area. He does a lot of rate reviews up in that area. And then we have Kevin and another local accountant review our performance every year. So it's not getting looked at just by one set of eyes. It's getting looked at by a lot of sets of eyes. And if there are any questions and they see numbers askew, they come to us and ask us why this number looks weird. And then we go back and figure out what the problem is and fix it. So
Are you basically saying that any increases in rates and reductions in rates are all, I guess, temporary because of that annual review?
You know, we can say that. You know, there's multiple ways to look at it. So if our margins creeped up and we had a good rate of return one year, and keep in mind it's our allowable rate of return that we have is a 10% margin, and that's pre-tax, so we pay taxes out of that. So if our margins creeped up to 15%, you wouldn't see us in here asking for anything. I mean, it could hold off a rate review or a rate increase for a longer period of time. Does that answer your question and make sense? Okay, thank you.
All right, at this point, I'd like to go to the people who have signed up so they can share their thoughts with us. So thank you, and we'll give you a chance to come back after additional public testimony so we can hear from you if there are any questions that come up. Would that work? So I'd like to call up Mr. Jim Parr. And let's see, Reed Carlson, you're with the haulers, and then Royce Young, you'll be on deck. Yes.
Thank you, Council, for being willing to revisit this at least one more time before you make a decision. For most of the history of recycling, people out of the best of intentions debated, can this possibly be recycled? Is there, maybe someone can do something with this, so we got in the habit of throwing it in the blue bin. There was no pushback. Now, we're asked to do the opposite. If there's any doubt at all, throw it in the gray cart. Minimize the blue cart. We've been at this for a year, trying to get it better. Apparently we still haven't got it where it needs to be. Now, you can't blame China for not wanting to clean up our mess, but China should have given us many years of warning that this was coming. Our own local industry should have given us more years of warning that we were going to have to start making changes ourselves. It's very hard, and it's a long process to change people's habits. So I suggest something like this. Before you raise the rates, let's simplify. Let's go backwards in time, and with the blue bin, let me just say it, the red bin works perfect. It's very hard to screw up the red bin. That's a good process. But as far as the blue bin, let's go backwards and simplify. For a while, let's just concentrate on clean cardboard. The way we began this many years ago, clean cardboard, nothing else. If we get that under control, it works well and there's markets, let's add one more product back to the blue bin, probably, I'm thinking, clean tin cans. I don't know if newspaper works right now or not, but let's just concentrate on cardboard and see if we can get that right. And don't raise the rates for a while, let's give that a try. See if that minimizes some of the expenses at the centers. There is something to me that seems strange about the recycling industry. I've always wondered about this. If you're General Motors and want to build a car, you buy your raw products. You invest in everything that you use to make that car. Recycling's different. If I buy something from Amazon or from Costco and it's in a cardboard box, I paid for that cardboard box. I put it in the blue bin, I pay my hauler to haul it. It goes to the recycling center where he bundles it up and hopefully sells it at a profit. He did not have to pay me for that cardboard. He isn't paying anyone for the materials that come in that he bundles up and sells hopefully at a product. That seems strange. Maybe we should think about this. Maybe we ought to give up on that type of recycling and just concentrate on energy recovery, whether it's methane from the landfills or direct energy from our burner. There are other options to the blue bin at all. But if the rates keep going up, someday I'm going to come and ask that my collection service be menu driven. If I don't want the blue bin, I shouldn't have to pay for it. I don't want to see this come to something like that, but if it's going to continue to be a cost escalation issue, maybe people should get more choice in what they want, what kind of service they want, and how much service they want. That's all I have to offer.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. I appreciate that. So the next two I have signed up are Reed Carlson and John Sullivan, so we're going to come back to you. Royce Young? come on down. If you just give your name and city of residence for the record. And then Jessica Davidson, you're on deck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council members. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to come into my community. I'm a 20-year Keizer resident. I'm retired, and I come to speak in favor for the haulers. I know a price increase was never something that you look forward to, but I'm familiar with the system that they have for coming up with their numbers. It's very transparent. I mean, you have a couple haulers that well over 50 years serving our community. And over the past year, excuse me, fuel cost increases have been beyond what was imagined a year ago. It's always difficult to budget for a year when things change. I'd like to address a couple of items from the gentleman that spoke previously. By limiting the material in the carts to cardboard or newspaper or whichever, by limiting the material, it actually increases the cost. We try to collect as much material that is usable as possible. There's a federal mandate for recycling numbers that cities and states are targeted to collect. So just to not do the blue card anymore is not going to really work. We wouldn't be able to keep up with the federal mandates. The problem with the recycling that is kind of what everything is coming to is just people have gotten careless, and the contamination has really created a problem for materials that possibly could be recycled, but they're no longer able to do that because they're contaminated. It's been a lot of changes in the past 25 to 30 years when the red basket was the whole deal. Everybody could recycle everything they had in that, and that we kind of outgrew that and tried to be more conscientious and try to take away the amount of material that actually winds up at the waste energy facility, and then eventually the ash that has to go to the landfill. So I would urge you to consider the proposals that have been presented, and it's important that we have garbage service. I wouldn't even want to try to think of our community without having the ability to get rid of our garbage. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Jessica Davidson? If you just state your name and city of residence for the record.
My name is Jessica Davidson, and I am a resident of Keizer. Thank you for this opportunity, council members and Madam Mayor. As a community member, a concern that I have had is folks in our community burning recyclables and waste in their fireplaces. Yeah. It happens on a regular basis during the winter months in neighborhoods around me, and I feel that a rate increase might increase that happening in our neighborhoods. And I hope that that's something that you guys might consider, as some families are on budgets. Our family is one of them, and rate increases greatly affect our budget. And so just wanted you guys to take that into consideration, and that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And I appreciate that with people burning trash in their fireplaces, backyard burning. That used to be a huge issue. And I'm not sure who to direct this to. If people are burning trash in backyard burns, fireplaces and so forth, is that a call to the fire department, fire district? Well, I've reported backyard burning. I got pretty famous for that for a while because I had some neighbors that absolutely insisted on doing that, which we do not permit. So if people are burning trash, is that something that we would direct to the fire district?
I'll take a stab.
All right.
So the prohibition on burning is a fire district prohibition. And so we have a very difficult time. I think there are several layers of EPA rules that prohibit garbage burning. But as you can imagine, it's very difficult to see who's burning what. And we know from the odor, we know from, you know, the various kinds of things that are burned that there are things being burned. But we just simply don't have enforcement ability to quantify what's being burned. So a residential burn is allowed. I mean, a recreational burn, if it's within a fire pit, no greater than 5 feet in diameter. There are various rules that even allow a backyard burn. So it becomes a very difficult thing to enforce if somebody is burning plastic, for example, because by the time anybody's responded, it's consumed and it's a mess. It honestly falls more to a sense of community and a sense of being part of a larger community and personal responsibility. But a large burn, it would be calling to the fire district. That would not be something that we could do anything about.
Okay, so that'd be a fire district, and also want to partner with them as much as possible when people are burning things that could end up becoming a problem, both in air quality, but also build up in a chimney, because chimney fires are so much fun, not for the district to handle. All right. So I definitely want to build that relationship as well. But I agree there's a concern there. There are people who will try to find alternatives. A friend of mine lives out off of Delaney, and every time there are some folks that would just prefer to leave large bags of trash along their road rather than deal with them responsibly, take them to the transfer station. So that's one of his ongoing pleasures of living out in the country, unfortunately. All right, but thank you for bringing that concern. It's something for code enforcement also to remain aware of as well, with on the trash side, with people trying to fob off their trash without disposing of it responsibly. That's all I had signed up. Is there anybody else who would like to address the council as part of this hearing? All right, are there any other questions from council that they would like to have addressed by our representatives from the industry? Oh, I will mention that as well. Yes. Before we close the hearing, we also received a letter from, whoops, wrong one. This one. From Pat Fisher, a resident of Keizer. Mayor, Council President, and councilors, I'm sorry I cannot attend in person tonight, but please add my thoughts to the discussion on trash collection rates. As you may recall, I came to testify last year about the unfair rate structure currently in place, and I believe that the gentleman did refer to that. I pointed out that people who generate less garbage pay a higher per gallon rate than those who use larger cans. I asked that the rates be adjusted to reward those who make the effort to reduce, reuse, and recycle instead of allowing for a discount for higher volumes of trash. My remarks at the time were well received by the Mayor, Council, and by representatives of Lawrence Sanitation. I was told that my concerns should be addressed in the next update of the rate structure. You are not about to vote on a rate adjustment, and I don't see anything about volume pricing, only a percentage increase based on current pricing system. I have 3 concerns about the options in play at this point. 1, none of the options addresses the concerns I previously raised. The price per gallon needs to be higher for larger volumes of trash to encourage all households and businesses to be mindful about what products and packaging they buy to begin with and what they ultimately toss into the trash. 2, why is there a different increase proposed for business versus residential customers? A gallon or pound of trash is the same no matter who it comes from. The increase should apply equally to all. 3, any increase you approve should be temporary. The waste management industry took away our recycling options with almost no warning. They need a strong incentive to find and develop new markets for recycling so we can back to our previous recycling opportunities. I recommend a 6-month surcharge period, after which a progress report must be reported and approved before allowing an extension. Concurrent with that, the City of Keizer should join other cities in pressing the state legislature to get tough on wasteful packaging. We need both the carrot and the stick to move back toward a sane and responsible waste management system and avoid the need for huge, expensive landfills. Thank you for your consideration, Pat Fisher. So that, Tracy, you have a copy of this for the record. All right. Is there anything else that you would like to conclude with based on any of the points that were raised?
So I did look at the gallons and the cost per gallon, and they are relatively close and lined up. I think the last time that we were here and she talked about the gallons, she talked about the weekly per gallons, and we left out the ability of what we dispose of. So, you know, I want everybody to be aware that, you know, when you have a 20-gallon service, you have the ability to have a 95-gallon blue cart dumped every other week. So, and we calculated it 4.33 times per month. It's not four dumps per month. So we just need to be cognizant of how many gallons we truly are dumping. I didn't bring those numbers with me, but at a 65-gallon service, I do recall the numbers being over 1,000 gallons of service on those 4.33 dumps. That's our exposure, if you will, with the 16-gallon red bin, the yard debris dumped weekly, and the commingled dumped every other week, and then the garbage dumped weekly. So Kevin did work on some of the numbers a little bit because I talked to him about the cost per gallon, and he can speak a little more to it.
Thank you.
Did you need any other information? I didn't bring the actual numbers or the calculations with me either, but.
Okay. Does anybody need those right now, or be okay with just some follow-up public information, because there are people who are asking the question. It's good to get out there just to answer that question, because it's going to come up again, and rightly so. All right. Any other questions as City Manager?
So just to refresh my memory, the waste-to-energy facility, though it should, does not count toward recycling numbers, correct?
No, some of it counts towards the recycling numbers, and Kevin could probably answer that better than I. Does some of the numbers from the waste-to-energy facility, do they count? Not the numbers that we bring in.
Okay.
But there is some, if you will, I think credits that they get.
But does it count toward our DEQ requirements for recycling?
Not in the city of Keizer, it doesn't.
Okay, and that's where I was getting at. So okay. Is there something else? I'm sure there was, but I'm approaching 50, so I'm gonna lose it.
Oh wow!
Thanks.
No problem.
Oh.
Thank you.
I'm not quite 50, but
Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. You're looking to the wrong place for sympathy, sir. No, I appreciate the approach to the costs, and also the, there was in previous legislative sessions discussion on how the energy generated at the Covanta plant was calculated, and it was not renewable, and now it is renewable. Can you speak to that briefly?
Not really.
Okay.
Not intelligently.
I know that Commissioner Brentano was very involved in that effort to make sure that it was considered what it really is, which is a renewable, and most importantly, it also is a lot more efficient and better for the environment than a landfill, which generates methane, which is a very potent greenhouse gas.
And I'd be happy to get that information from the solid waste director if you'd like.
I think that would be good information, again, to get out there.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, is there anything else that, any other questions that council has for the folks here? All right. City Attorney, I'm looking to close the hearing. Is there any?
Madam Mayor, I probably would suggest that before you close the hearing to see if more questions come up in your discussion. Prior to any motion, you should close the hearing. So I'm not sure if the council ends up having some questions as part of the discussion or not. That often happens. So I would suggest holding off closing the hearing until you're ready to make a motion.
All right. So is there any questions or comments that council has that might, Councilor Herrera?
Yeah, remind me one more time how it works as far as how often.
I thought we were done.
Maybe,
No, I think you're
think
good,
Chris can
you're good.
answer
Yeah,
this
we're
one.
just,
I
okay.
think Chris can answer.
Okay.
Remind me one more time how often they can approach us about a rate increase and what that depends on?
They could theoretically come every year, should they choose to, or more than once a year, but we typically see them about every 2 to 3 years.
And the last time was.
2 years ago.
I remember.
It was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was my question. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments? I can see the wheels turning. Councilor Ryan.
Thank you. And honestly, I'm not sure if it's actually a question or a conversation, and it might be in the wrong time, so I apologize. I'm just wondering, in all of the material we've got and information we have, and I appreciate all the details, thank you so much. I'm just wondering if there is maybe a conversation that needs to happen about maybe an incentive to ask for a, maybe do this, something, an increase where we're looking at it temporarily, or maybe that's the wrong word, but with a review so that we can, like John said, maybe bring it down in a year. We don't know what's going to happen. Maybe something will happen with, another source that's driving this cost up. For example, instead of China, maybe something else. I'm just wondering if we could look at the option of reevaluating and trying to bring it down so there's some accountability and follow-up with the citizens when we share the increase.
City Manager?
I might suggest if the council is contemplating that, that sort of structure, I would suggest making it at least a 12-month period, not a 6-month. It's a very complicated business, and it's a fluid business. There's a lot going on right now.
And 6 months goes really
And
fast.
6 months goes very, very fast, and we would be back here with probably not much having changed. So, perhaps if the council does approve a rate increase, asking the haulers to come back and provide a report at the 12-month period after the rate goes into effect, to show us the effects and give us an update on the market, et cetera, and show us, where they are with that rate increase and how long it could potentially be before another. I think, seeing you back earlier could be useful with some report back. So.
Well, and even the year is, I totally don't have a time in my head. It was just a suggestion, but it shows us, it shows the citizens that we're being accountable, due diligence with their revenue, making sure that, if something does change, we can bring that down for them instead of always giving them increases at the revisits, and that would show some good faith to, I think, the citizens that, maybe there is some more accountability. To try to get that down, like John said, it was, possibly to reassess, and so just a suggestion. And again, I'm not sure if that's the right timing, but I could do a friendly amendment or whatever, but I just figured we'd.
Yeah. So the other thing might be also, communications, and that's been something we've talked about both last time and this time about outreach regarding not only recyclables and the markets and so forth. That would be very useful information. We received, as the Mayor's Conference, received a presentation from the Department of Environmental Quality on the work being done at a state level regarding finding new markets, looking at the waste streams, strategies to help our waste management business and industry to be able to do their job, but do it safely and have clean product, what was changing in the global market. So there's a state element here as well that might be very interesting to people for outreach and communication, and then maybe a performance. How are we doing a year from now? How are we doing as a community in cleaning up our blue blue cans. That might be good for us to know as well. Are we being effective in our outreach to people to clean up our blue cans? Because I think the gentleman's point was well taken, that we have to retrain ourselves as well as, because we also, I think, are accountable partners in this. Speaking of which, no, I'll throw this in later. This isn't part of the motion, but it's going to be a follow-up, so I'll save that one. Is there anything else that we need to discuss prior to closing the hearing, putting a motion on the table? Okay, I'm not hearing anything else. I'm looking into the city attorney.
I think it's fine.
All right. So at this point, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask Councilor Freeman to put a motion on the table for us to debate.
I'm recommending council a motion to warrant the price increase, which is number 3, with the caveat that the haulers come back in 12 months, so through the close of 2019, to have a summary, one of how we're doing with a report on how we're doing with recycling. I also want to know what kind of outreach we've done, so Reed, you've got your marching orders. What we're doing both, in person, but how we can use social media, Channel 23, CCTV, because I think this is more than just a Keizer issue, but I think there's just ways, the more people that we can address. So I'd like to see a report at the close of 2019, because I think we need a full year to really see how we're doing. With that, back to council, I'm going to say February, 2020? Just to give a year in time to wrap up. And then direct council, or direct staff to prepare the appropriate order if the motion's approved.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council direct staff to prepare the order for option number 3. In addition, to ask the waste haulers to come back by February 2020 with information on our recycling performance and outreach efforts. The attorney.
So the question would be, the report would basically be for the calendar year 2019.
Correct.
Brought in February.
Right.
I may suggest, when I have the hearing closed, you might want to make it March in terms of getting figures together. I don't know if February works.
We can, a friendly amendment to change the language to
I just don't know how long it takes them to.
I was looking at John when I was saying, and I didn't see any
No, like.
March is great, okay. Then the other harder question is, the discussion had been testimony and some of the council discussion about the rates themselves. Are they sunsetting or not? Because is it just a report, or would the rate, in other words, do you have to come back to continue those rates or not? And the difference is, of course, if it's just a report, then there's no rate change.
Correct.
You couldn't lower the rate really unless you're going to sunset it, is I guess what I'm getting at. So I didn't know if that was part of the motion or not.
Is the motion to sunset, or is the motion to ask for this additional information?
Yeah, my motion wasn't to change any fees. I just want to see a report.
Okay.
But are you saying I need that in my motion?
Well, no. I guess the question is, we don't know what the report will say. It could say, well, gee, prices are great, we're going to reduce the rates. That seems a little optimistic, especially given what's relatively a short period, frankly. If it's just bring back a report, and the report's not sufficient for you, the rates aren't going to change, because you didn't sunset the rates. So if the motion is just to bring the report, that's no problem too. I just don't want council to think come March of 2020, well, I don't like your report, and so we're going to reduce your rates. You couldn't do that unless you sunsetted them now, in my opinion. I mean, they're coming in for a rate increase. That would be a little out of the ordinary, and that's fine. Either way you want to do it. I just didn't want any misperceptions at the time this report came in. So.
Okay, so we have clarity on the motion
It is just a report then?
It is a report, it's an accountability report, but it's option 3, asking for additional follow-up information on calendar year 2019, reportable as early as possible in 2020. Okay. Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I guess 2 points. I'd like to see it, and I didn't understand that. Thank you very much. I'd like to see it so that we have the option, if things change and improve, that the goal would be to lower the rates for the citizens if we can. And if we're not allowed to do that unless we sunset it, and I say we, meaning joint discussion.
And I'm sorry to interrupt. They certainly could do that.
They can.
The haulers certainly could bring in and say, things have stabilized, we have a new market, this is what our new rate is, we're suggesting a decrease in rates. The haulers could do that.
Because then they'll know there could be a change or something really positive
No,
happening
there's nothing
in
to
the
prevent
industry.
the haulers from requesting a rate decrease.
Okay.
And
Which, yeah,
they
they
are, overall, the rate of return, as John reported, is the 10%, but that's an overall figure. So it goes up and down. Nobody could keep it
Right.
exactly straight. So,
thank you, Shannon.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm curious if we feel like this is providing an incentive to find solutions to keep our rates from going up. It's hard, I know the council probably can't answer that, but does that make sense? I mean, the goal would be to try to incentivize that we find solutions to not continue to go up.
Well, I might point out, though, and it was mentioned during the presentation, was that that's something that our individual haulers don't have as much control over. We're talking about the state with DEQ, and some of this, the state level work is to find those new markets and to help with standardizing the cleanliness of the waste stream. So that's really not something our individual haulers can do, because this is feeding into something that is larger than this.
So is this legislative then, to try to drive that down? Is that what we're?
Actually, it's work of the state agencies that are already working
Well,
on
there
this.
we go. Now we're in trouble. Great.
So, no, DEQ is already working on that because it is a high priority for the state on a number of fronts, not the least of which is the importance of recycling and having a clean waste stream.
Okay.
The other I might point out is that we also heard that the haulers, our haulers here, took a $250,000 loss, which is already had happened, and they're not looking to recoup that.
Right.
So while this is going to increase their stream to stabilize funding, they've already taken the hit.
Right.
As this market has gyrated, again, with markets that are beyond their control. So these are local businesses,
right,
run and operated by local owners and employees who are trying to do the best that they can to provide quality service. So I appreciate that they didn't come back to try to recoup that $250,000, but I would be hesitant to pull back too quickly before we're sure that these markets are going to stabilize. And what we heard was it's going to take 2 to 3 years, very likely, for that to happen with the global markets. So I love the idea of getting reports back and hearing how we're doing, a report on our performance as individual recyclers, as well as how the markets are doing. I think it's good communication, but I feel very strongly to not extract it from our local businesses, our small businesses that are operating here in our community.
I'm just wondering where the pushback is then, if it's not legislative, it's DEQ. I mean, how do we incentivize and encourage them so that the citizens, not just Keizer, but the citizens are not paying for the business issues internationally that we're facing? Does that make sense?
It does, but the incentive is already there because the work is already underway. There's an incentive because you want to sell that product. You want to get that product into the waste stream. It's a marketable product if it's done right.
Right, understood.
So as I've heard it, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is an incentive to have good, clean product that is collected, bundled, and sold. It's good for our environment. It's good for our businesses. It's just healthy for our community. I absolutely agree. But we've got to make sure that our waste stream, the product that we are generating through this, that we're diverting from the waste-to-energy facility, is something that can be sold. Right now, it is so highly contaminated, 16%? That's not doable. The other part is we're saving capacity out at the waste energy facility. We've heard for years that we might hit a limit where we need a third burner, and that is a spendy little proposition to try to put a third burner out there. So the more we can divert into appropriate resellable materials like we do with our green cans, the better off we're going to be, and we can delay that day when we have to put in a third burner out there, especially with increasing population as well. So,
Understood. Thank you for explaining.
so just my point of view. Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I just want to clarify on the sunset. So without the sunset, the haulers could decrease based on that information, but we cannot. With the sunset, we can look at that and say, okay, we want to see that decreased or renewed. So does that give us a little bit more option, or just a little bit more clarification on that?
Well, and I noticed Chris is maybe wants to weigh in, because I'm not sure he agrees with me. The comment, I think someone on the council, but definitely somebody in the audience, was, what about making this a temporary increase?
It was
And
the
so,
letter.
and so it wasn't clear to me, okay, we're going to have a report. Is this a temporary increase, or is, and to the time of the report, or is it just a report, which is fine. The haulers can come at any time, as Chris mentioned, and this would be a good time to either ask for an increase or a decrease. And they could come in March of 2020 and ask for a decrease or an increase. But if the rates are set, I don't know any mechanism for us to instigate a rate decrease. I don't know that the ordinance works like that, and I'm not sure we'd have the authority to do that at that time if the rates, because for years and years we've been doing this, we set the rates, and the rates are what the rates are until it comes back for a rate change, and they request it. I don't know of any avenue, you know, maybe it's in the ordinance, but I'm not familiar with any avenue for us to unilaterally say, you know, we set the rates back in, you know, December of 2018, and that's what the rates are until they request a change. I don't know that we could do that unless you formally say this is the rate, and it goes back to the other rate at this date unless we decide otherwise then. Does that help a little bit?
Okay, so I guess the bottom line is, which one gives us more options, the sunset or the no sunset?
The option that would give us the most options would be one that would sunset, and I just use that term. The point was is a temporary increase, that they have to come back and say, okay, this is what's happened, we still think that's a good rate, and you affirmatively say, yes, that's the rate. It doesn't give the haulers a lot of confidence, of course, because they have to buy equipment and things based on that. I'm not suggesting that. I just didn't want any mistake made that somehow the report means, okay, then the rates, we have to reaffirm the rates then. And that's why I want to know, because I have to write this thing for the next meeting. So that's why I wanted to know that answer. From the hauler's perspective, I've never heard of a temporary rate. I mean, I understand the incentive from the people that are asking about it, but from the hauler's perspective, this is a very expensive business. They make long-term financial decisions based on what the rates are going to be. So I'm not sure how that would really work anyway. But I didn't want any mistake made to have people say, well, I thought we could decrease the rate, when, you know, it wouldn't work like that. So that's really my explanation of that.
City Manager, and then Councilor Anderson.
I'll defer to the gentleman on my left for the moment.
Councilor Anderson.
I do have something to say, but.
Councilor Carlson.
The one who lost the Civil War?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Thanks for reminding me
The one who the mayor suggested may wish to speak.
Thank you. So when we, whether it's an adjustment on the rate or we're setting a rate, is there not some sort of a defined time period that is in effect where they have to come back and you know, there is an end date, whether we're extending the rate or whether we're approving a new franchise?
Are you talking in general or this specific instance?
Generally.
Generally, no. I don't recall ever setting rates and say, these are the rates for the next 2 years or 4 years or 3 years. It's always just, this is the rate until the rate changes.
The new rate.
Right.
Garbage rates are, I mean, it's a commodity. You're purchasing a commodity, And in order to provide that commodity, they have significant expenses associated with really expensive equipment. They have federal mandates, state mandates, et cetera, that they have to meet. They have employees with retirements and insurance. I mean, so the way I look at it, when they don't come in for a rate increase, because they're asking for a rate increase now, every year that they don't come in, they're basically giving you a rate reduction because their costs have gone up by a yearly amount, and they're not asking for an increase. So I would ask the council to think of that as well. This is a local business. They're not a government agency, and I think that there's a tendency, because they have a franchise with the city, to think of them like a wing of the government, and they're not. They're a local business.
And that's why I asked the question, just to
Okay.
be clear on this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Herrera?
Just to clarify, my second was the motion made just for report, and the amendment to that motion was March instead of February.
Correct.
I didn't second a change the rates, nothing like that. Just a report. They're a business, and I see both sides here, but for 1 year, I think that's fair, and it gives us something to see where we're at for future things, And Chris, believe me, I agree with what Chris just said about the business. I happen to know a little bit about it, although I worked for a little bit, just a very little. There's a lot of things that we don't see as customers, that expenses that are unbelievable, that were a surprise to me. Now, stating that, I'm on the budget, we're all on budgets, but I think it's fair to give them a 12 or till March, what I seconded. I think it's fair to just get a report and see what we're at. Not rate decrease, not rate increase, just see where we're at. Because I know that when they wait 2 years, they're always saying, I wish I could, I know that they took a big loss, and like we keep saying, they are a local business. And, like I said, I think that's what I seconded, and I stand by that. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Do we need to restate the motion, or is everybody clear? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously with one absent. Thank you, everybody, for participating in the conversation, and we look forward to doing a really good job with our blue bins this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to our second, if I can find, before we move on, I'd like to put this out there for folks who are interested in this issue. The Marion County Solid Waste Management Advisory Council has 3 openings. There's information available on the Marion County website, and I would encourage anybody interested in solid waste management to put in an application to get involved. How can we continue to do a better job with our outreach and also the management of our waste streams? So it's Marion County Solid Waste Advisory Council. I have created a Facebook post that will pop up tomorrow, and I encourage anybody who's interested to look at that and get involved. Thank you so much. All right, let's go to our second public hearing, which is item 7B. Yes. Do you have a question? Councilor Ryan.
No, I was just thinking about, I wondered if we need maybe a minute break.
It is, before we start our second public hearing, that's
If not, I'm happy just to come right.
all right. Why don't we take a 5-minute break, and we will reconvene. Thank you. Hydration has consequences. Back. All right, we'll be back in session, and we're going to go on now to item 7B, which is the House Bill 4006, severely rent burden status of the city of Keizer. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Brown.
Okay. So House Bill 4006 requires the city to hold a public meeting to discuss the issues surrounding the fact that the city has been determined to be 27% rent burden. Anybody over 25%, 25 and over, is required to hold a discussion about the fact that we have been designated as a rent burden. Now, it's a little funny because the designation comes basically not through any empirical data, nobody filled out a form. It simply comes through extrapolation through the American Community Survey, which is a group that's associated with the census. But regardless, we have received this designation, and quite honestly, we are receiving a benefit because that is how we are doing our new housing needs analysis and buildable lands inventory to revise our numbers, and I'll mention that a little later. So in the staff report, basically...
Can I press pause? I opened the public hearing, right? I announced it, but I don't think I opened it. So it's open. All right.
Continue.
Okay.
Bad
So I've
habit.
basically identified what the statute requires. We have, and I've also included in the packet all the people that we have notified of this. Anybody that's basically associated with providing housing, we have reached out to. We've put it on social media. We've put it on our website. The statute, however, is pretty vague on what we want to talk about. So there is no specific conclusion that we are seeking. There is no specific motion that we are asking for. We are basically asking for the community to give testimony or the council to simply discuss. As you know, housing prices are a very complex, market-driven kind of issue, and there are a lot of things that go into it. Our regional context, our local context, all of those kinds of things play a role in it. And you know, some communities, some larger communities actually go in, and at that point we call them metropolitan areas, actually attempt to regulate rents. We have not in this community, nor do we generally have the resources for that kind of program. So, having said all of that, I basically turn it to you to say, what are your concerns and what are your issues about being a severely rent burdened? And I failed to mention that is defined as a household that has to spend more than 50% of its income on housing costs. So.
All right, so any questions on the staff report or what's going to be our next steps, which is the Building Lands Inventory Housing Needs Analysis Study, which is the group that we appointed at the last meeting to be on that committee, and we'll be receiving that report sometime in the spring? Is that the intention?
Well, the entire project has to be completed by the end of June. So,
Of 2019?
So it will be a very quick and pretty intense kind of project for us. As long as we're talking about it, we've already had discussions. Our first meeting with our consultant, we have the contract in place now. We have, everything is on a go. So our first meeting with the 4 different jurisdictions of our SCAPAC agreement are going to meet this coming Thursday. We're going to talk about the underlying assumptions about how we're going to get started in this. And basically what that means is we're going to take the new reset point of our population projection. As you know, the statute now changed that process. It's all being done by Portland State. We are going to take that new set point and continue with the previously adopted methodologies and assumptions that we had for our adopted HNA BLI.
So everybody's clear on how we're going to be getting that data. At this point, though, this is just acknowledging the designation as severely rent burdened and watching the markets as they're impacting. The big question I have is how is this going to help us in qualifying for funds for affordable housing or other measures to help members of our community who are rent burdened?
Well, the only funding that the statute created was this that we are receiving the benefit from to do our study. And there were other projects as well, but there is no funding provided by the state for housing assistance. Of course, we participate with the Salem Housing Authority actually covers the Salem Keizer area, so we participate in that. So we do receive benefit through the Community Development Block Grant process, and that will continue, and we will continue to participate in that. And as you know, we are making sure that we have representation on that board. So we have a voice, and we will continue to monitor those issues.
So would some of the results of the study possibly help us in future eligibility for affordable housing programs? I mean, I'm looking for is how is this going to get us some money to actually provide for people in our community who are rent burdened? Or is this going to be data that shows, gee, we've got a problem?
How does it get us more money? As I mentioned, there is no money, there is no pot of gold that has been created by
I'll take silver.
Obviously. We will continue statutorily or by agreement. We participate in the Salem Housing Authority area and the CDBG program.
That's it. Okay.
We will continue that, and we will basically, I think, the emphasis here is for us to be aware of the issue and to pay attention to opportunities that we may have to eliminate obstacles. Now, in Keizer, we pride ourselves of being pretty darn obstacle-free in our processes. However, it's just simply to raise our awareness of the issue.
Okay. Anything else from council? All right.
No, but I just...
Councilor Freeman?
This lovely bill lives in my agency, Oregon Housing. It doesn't live with me, thank goodness. But I think to address the mayor's question on, how does this bring money potentially to Keizer? And just from, again, I'm the homeownership person, not multifamily, but we really have a shortage of developers who will develop low-income housing, and it takes a lot to put one of those multifamily deals together. We can thank the legislature for LIFT funds in the last 2 sessions, which really have allowed some developers to do some unique and innovative type housing, really focusing on rural, even though we're not in rural communities, but it's also addressing communities of color. But I think if you are following the governor's housing plan, and if it's approved by the legislature, there will be a significant amount of money for development. Now, granted, most of those developments take about 3 years to actually come to fruition, which doesn't help when we're in a housing crisis, and we know people are severely rent burdened. But I think there's resources that potentially come, so maybe we just need to work with some builders and find some land in our lovely community. Maybe the Salem Housing Authority would be one of our partners, or others, Mountain West. They're the ones that did the great apartment complex on Portland Road, and maybe we could just have some wonderful partners in our own community. So I think it's there. It's just cultivating whomever may so wish to partner with us and find those lovely resources that are going to be needed, along with other many funding sources, to put those deals together. So.
Thank you.
And if I may, it also goes into our whole background, our approach to our regulatory structure, for example. We already allow things like cottage clusters. We already allow a liberal application of our accessory dwelling units. And we, as you know, we're staying current on that. Pretty soon we're going to be seeing some recommendations on regulatory changes for our revitalization program as to how we can provide more options and more flexibility and greater density along our corridors. So I think this goes into the whole, your perspective, your role as regulators in how do you want to address these issues as these issues work through the system.
Okay. Anything further from council? So,
Madam Mayor.
Councilor Anderson?
Yeah, just to add in a little bit here, I recall tracking this bill during the last session of the legislature this year, regular session, and I think it's very much what Nate described. A lot of it's just, I think the purpose, as I recall, of the bill is mainly to have folks have the conversation and try and gather data really more than anything else. There's some technical resources that were made available through to DLC, Department of Land Conservation and Development, and State Housing Agency. So it's just kind of part of a bigger issue, I think, in terms of trying to get our arms around this issue.
Okay, thank you. Anything further before I close the public hearing? I don't have anybody signed up for the public hearing. Is there anybody who would like to address the council on this issue? Seeing none. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And Councilor Freeman, do you want to put a motion on the table?
Sure, I recommend that council direct staff to submit the required information to the state as required in House Bill 4006.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council direct staff to submit the required information to the state as required in House Bill 4006. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously with one absent. Item 7C, which is the Faux Keizer liquor license new application. City manager. Oh, public hearing open. City manager.
That was beautiful.
Thank
Okay.
you.
On October 31st, 2018, the city received an application for a new liquor license for Faux Keizer, which is located at 3400 River Road North, Keizer, Oregon. This is the former site of Aroma Fusion. The application is for a full on-premises license, and as required by Keizer ordinance, a public hearing was scheduled, notice was published, and mailed to property owners within 200 feet of the proposed establishment. The Keizer Police Department reports a clear background check on the applicant and does not have any reason to recommend denial of the application. In addition, the Community Development Department has found the location of the establishment to be properly zoned and has no additional comments. It is recommended the public hearing be opened to allow testimony from the applicant or other interested individuals, and upon completion, the hearing be closed. It is further recommended the City Council recommend approval of the application for Faux Keizer under the guidelines as established by ORS 471.166 and the ordinances of the City of Keizer, and the recommendation will be forwarded to the Oregon Liquor Control Commission. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Questions on the staff report? Councilor Ryan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, my question is for the owner.
I will let him introduce himself, and then you can ask your question at that point. Any questions on the staff report? All right. Welcome. Would you please introduce yourself and go ahead and have a seat? And welcome. We're glad to have you here. And tell us a little bit about your business.
Hey, good evening. My name is Jonathan, and with Faux Keizer.
We'll use the other microphone. It's better.
Thank you.
We have people watching on television.
Oh. Hey, good evening. My name is Jonathan, and we like family business, a restaurant down the street, and so this is the first time I've been over here, so I'm kind of a little nervous. But anyway, welcome. You know, like I really appreciate that we have a chance to enjoy the community, and hopefully, we do good in business and with the community, and hopefully everybody, have a chance to try it out.
So today was your first day open?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, how exciting. Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank
So
you.
can you tell us a little bit about what kind of food you serve? And
We had mainly Vietnamese food, like pho, like noodle soup and rice dish and rice noodles, and egg rolls, sour rolls, and the drinks. Yes, ma'am.
well, I'm looking forward to coming. And it sounds like Councilor Ryan has a question.
Yeah, hi, welcome and congratulations as
Thank you
well.
so much.
My question is about your liquor license. So you're applying for a liquor license for the restaurant, but the bar is still separate, or are you taking over the bar also?
On the other side of the bar, it's still separate.
They're two separate businesses, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councilor Herrera and then Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Are you guys the ones in the corner there
Yes, sir, by the
on Plymouth?
Yes,
J Garden, it was
Okay,
J
no,
Garden.
hasn't that been open for a while, or am I wrong?
Yes, I think they set up for a while, then one of the,
Okay,
this was Mexican food, and then now we took over.
all right.
Yes.
Well, welcome.
Hi, thank you so
I
much.
wish you the best.
Thank you.
Councilor Anderson.
No, just, I would just echo Councilor Herrera. Welcome to Keizer. Thanks so much for coming here tonight, too. It's
so much.
always appreciate folks that are applying for these licenses to actually come before council. So I appreciate you being here tonight, and thank you so much.
That's me and being here tonight. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay. All right, is anybody else who would like to speak to us tonight? All right, then I'm going to close public hearing. Councilor Freeman.
I recommend the council approve the liquor application for, is it Fa? Keizer, under the guidelines established by ORS 471.166 and the ordinance of the city of Keizer, and then this recommendation will be forwarded on to the Oregon Liquor Control Commission for final approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council recommend approval of the application for the Keizer under the guidelines as established by ORS 471.166 and the ordinances of the City of Keizer, and that this recommendation be forwarded to the Oregon Liquor Control Commission for final approval. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. We wish you all the best, sir. Okay, our final public hearing tonight is for the Keizer Mart liquor license change of ownership application. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On November
Hang on. Public hearing is now open.
5th, 2018, city received an application for a change of ownership for the liquor license at the Keizer Mart located at 4940 River Road North in Keizer. The application is for an off-premises license. As required by the Keizer ordinance, a public hearing was scheduled and notice was published and mailed to all property owners within 200 feet of the establishment. The Keizer Police Department reports a clear background check on the applicant and has no reason to recommend denial. In addition, the Keizer Community Development Department finds the location of the establishment to be properly zoned. It is recommended the public hearing be opened to allow testimony from the applicant or other interested individuals, and upon completion, the hearing be closed. Just further recommend City Council recommend approval of the application for the Keizer Mart under the guidelines as established by ORS 471.178 and the ordinances of the City of Keizer, and the recommendation will then be forwarded to the Oregon Liquor Control Commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on the staff report? Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Two questions. Am I wrong, or have we not had new ownership there like 20 times in the last, I don't know, it feels like a lot. Is it the same location that we keep getting a new owner?
I think 20 times would be a stretch, but we've had quite a
10?
few.
Okay. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but I just wondered because, and you said off-premise, so I just thought maybe you could clarify that for me.
They're gonna sell beer and probably wine, and that will then be taken off premises to be consumed.
Okay, of course.
Oh.
I thought you meant they're applying for a license to sell it off-premise.
Oh,
And I misunderstood. I apologize. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Any other questions on the staff report? All right, is there anybody who would like to speak to this issue? All right, seeing none, close the public hearing. Councillor Freeman.
I recommend the council approve the application for Keizer Mart, the liquor license for Keizer Mart under the guidelines established by ORS 471.178 and the ordinances of the City of Keizer, and forward this recommendation on to the Oregon Liquor Control Commission for final approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council recommend approval of the application for the Keizer Mart under the guidelines as established by ORS 471.178 and the ordinances of the City of Keizer, and that this recommendation be forwarded to the Oregon Liquor Control Commission for final approval. Additional discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously with one absent. That concludes our public hearings. That takes us then to administrative action. Item 8A is a resolution adopting use policies and rates for the Keizer Community Center rooms, repealing Resolution 2015-2612. City Manager.
Is this public hearing?
It is not.
It is not.
It's
Oh,
administrative action.
we've moved on. Good.
Yep.
City Attorney.
Good catch.
I know Chris wanted another public hearing, but
You have no idea. You have no idea how much I want another public
We are
hearing.
enjoying this so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chris, Madam Mayor, and Council. So this has been in the works for a while, the community center policies and rates or discounts. It's always a little bit of a balancing act. As I put in the staff report, the city kind of has the duty to balance the use of the community center as a public resource, which it was advertised when this building was built as for use of the public, but with the duty of the city to recover costs for the capital expense, the staff time, wear and tear, and other fixed or non-fixed costs. And so it's always difficult to figure out, well, is this something that makes sense as a public benefit? Should it be free? Should it be discounted or not? So we go through that. We try not to bring this issue up too often, but we've found that we have situations where certain uses seem to be appropriate for free use, certain uses seem to be appropriate for maybe a bigger discount. So I'll just go through the summary in the staff report. The biggest change, I think, is for what we call city-hosted activities, and that's in new section 1G. Let me turn to it here, so I actually have it in front of me. And this is for uses that we've actually been doing, and it's a little unclear in some of the bigger rooms. And again, this is for the one or two of the medium rooms, like Iris A and B, for example, or just Iris B, not for the entire ballroom. We don't suggest discounting that if they're going to use the entire ballroom. But we've had events that are not strictly employee events, where we're calling city-hosted events, where they're conferences that are connected with city business. Organizations, public organizations, the water department, the police departments, occasionally HR, have events that are trainings that outside folks come to too. So it didn't really seem to make sense to staff that it should be free. But the flip side of it is a benefit to the city. We have staff people attending these events. And so the consensus that we came to is that in certain circumstances, those would be allowed at a 50% discount. We didn't want a situation where someone is really making money from a paid conference, but the flip side of it is some of these do have small registration fees. So we came up with a provision that the registration fees have to total no more than the actual out-of-pocket expenses for the event. The discount's only, like I said, only available for one or two medium rooms. And then for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday dates, you can't reserve it more than 6 months in event. That's to preserve those dates for full paying events, which are usually at a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday events. And so some of these want to schedule farther in advance, and so the compromise was, okay, if it's farther in advance, it needs to be a Wednesday or Thursday. So, and there would be no alcohol involved. So that was the one change there. The Keizer Community Library, that actually has been happening, but it wasn't really clear in the previous rules, the two book sale events without charge. City employee or city volunteer training, this is for one or two of the small rooms, so it would not be one of the medium-sized rooms. In other words, this is for events that are training with volunteers, and we occasionally do have non-city folks come, so we allowed that, and that is in 2F. And we indicated there that no fee could be charged unless there's an actual meal there. We don't want any paid conferences there and then giving the rooms up for free. We don't really have that much of a problem with the small rooms anyway, but we put that provision in there. And let me flip to the next page here. City-hosted educational events or outside committees. We have educational outreach events, the Water Festival, environmental, stormwater festivals, those types of things where we have outside community come as educational events. And then the last one, and it's misspelled, I noticed, council-approved waivers. This is something that you folks have been doing, but there's been no provision for it in the resolution. And we figured as council you had the authority to do that. But I thought we would put some sort of provision in there for you folks to kind of look at what you need to look at, somewhat subjective criteria. If in this, the council may reduce or waive rates, deposits, or other costs in the council's sole discretion if the use is a significant benefit to the Keizer community, considering such factors as the cost, staff resources, wear and tear, and other factors deemed appropriate. I also put a separate sentence in there with regard to insurance. I will probably recommend on an individual basis not waiving that, but we wanted to allow it. The council may waive or reduce insurance requirements for non-alcoholic events if the council's sole discretion the insurance cost is a significant burden and the event is low risk for damage or injury. So that gives you some opportunity. As we had recently, I recommended that you not waive that insurance requirement, and you chose not to, but we did want to put that provision in there. So that is an outline. There's some other minor tweaks, but that's an outline of the changes we are suggesting. And Tracy and I met many times trying to get this thing figured out. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, questions on the staff report. Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So it sounds like these are mostly events or trainings that we are hosting,
Right.
like per department,
Mostly, yes.
and we're charging the department?
Well, for example, I cannot remember the name of the group, but there's a human resources meeting in January, I believe. I think they're going to use one of the meeting rooms, Iris B or whatever. It's an Michelle belongs as a member. It's like, well, I'll use my example. I belong to the Oregon City Attorneys Association. They have conferences all over the state twice a year. They pay to have that conference space there. The city wouldn't be paying for it, if that's what you mean. Not the department, the organization would.
Okay, that's
Sorry.
why I was a little confused.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a little more sense to me. And because you did make a comment about not charging equal to whatever the expenses are, but I know there's a wear and tear on the building. It's hard to put a dollar figure on that just to make sure we're covering.
Well,
It's okay to
and
be
that's why
profitable, I'm
and that's why
assuming.
we determined that it should be a 50%, no more than a 50% discount. I mean, before a lot of these were free, and because they seem to be city-related events.
Sure.
The discussion internally with staff was, you know, that's fine for one or two of the small rooms, but if you're talking about one or two of the medium-sized rooms, 3,000, 6,000 square feet, that's staff time and wear and tear. Even though it's a benefit to the city because of the city employees, there's other folks, other outside employees, shall we say, other county, city employees that come to these meetings. Perhaps they should pay at least 50%, and that was the reason we determined that.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions on the staff report or on the ordinance? All right. Councilor Freeman, you want to put a motion on the table? Yeah, it's this one, yeah, that one.
I recommend Keizer City Council approve Resolution R 2018, adopting use of policies and rates for the Keizer Community Center rooms repealing Resolution R 2015-2612 with the exception of not waiving the insurance requirement on Section 4,
Lines 16 through 18.
line 16 through 18.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the Keizer City Council adopt Resolution R 2018, adopting use policies and rates for the Keizer Community Center rooms, repealing R 2015-2612, deleting line 16 through 18 and Section 4 that would, covering the waive or reduce insurance requirements. Discussion. Okay, is it clear what that change was? Okay.
I have it.
All right. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously with one absent. Okay, consent calendar. Councilor Freeman, would you read the items on the consent calendar, please?
We have 5 items tonight on the consent calendar. We have a resolution declaring the city's intent to initiate a street lighting local improvement district, Sterling Meadow, and directing the city engineer to make a survey and file a written report with the city recorder. 9B, a resolution accepting the canvass of election votes from the November 6th, 2018 general election for the city of Keizer, council positions, mayor, and positions 4, 5, and 6. Item 9C is a resolution authorizing the Public Works Director to sign PetroCard, Inc., purchasing documents for card lock fuel cards, and resolution authorizing administrative assistant to sign PetroCard, Inc., purchase order for card lock fuel cards. 9D is a resolution authorizing the Finance Director to purchase a printer from Dependable Printer Support for the Police Records Department and enter into a Toner Plus maintenance agreement for the printer. 9E is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for Mistletoe Loop Storm Drain Outfall Repair and with Michaels Corporation.
Thank you very much. Are there any polls? Councilor Freeman.
I move to approve, motion to approve the consent calendar items A through E.
A second.
The consent calendar has been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously with one absent. All right, council reports. Let's start with our, apparently it's Councilor Anderson's turn to start.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Just a report highlighting a few things, highlighting the tree lighting that's coming up tomorrow. So I would hope folks turn out for that. Always a great time of the year here in Keizer. I do not know what time that is offhand.
6 o'clock.
6 p.m. for the tree lighting. I'm sure Santa will be there. We'll have lots of good music and everybody joining in to make merry there. So encourage folks to do that. Then, of course, Saturday, our Holiday Lights Parade. There's the Jingle Dash. Folks want to be sure and turn out for. Again, always a great festive time. And really, it's neat that we do these things here in Keizer. I'm going to be joining, I think, most everybody else next Sunday at the Miracle of Christmas food collection site. So hopefully I can find that. Then just a couple of things. I've got the Keizer Chamber board meeting coming up on the 12th, and then I do not know, and perhaps Councilor Reed can help me out here on this, but there's some kind of holiday type concerts going on over in McNary. The McMary, I don't know if it's McNary.
Gonna take care of that
Concerts,
tonight.
cool, awesome. I have a son who's going to be participating in at least 2 of those. So, in any event, so those are all coming up. I know at least the 13th. There's going to be one there on that one because that's on my calendar. So, yeah. Other than that, yeah, I think that's all I shall say tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Councilor Herrera.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I got up this morning at 5:30 to head up to Portland with a couple of colleagues at the Oregon Leadership Summit, which was very interesting. It was my first, and I found it to be very enlightening, very well organized, pretty good stuff. And then we have the, you mentioned pretty much everything I had, except you forgot to mention about the Civil War. Forgot to mention about that.
Talking about.
Okay. Anyway, tomorrow's the tree lighting and Janet Carlson's party, so we're gonna have to, that'll be fun, going from one to the other.
Quickly.
And then Sunday will all be, I guess my point of interest meeting from Thursday has been canceled, I suppose, it says. But Sunday will be over at the tree lighting, like you said, parks next week, and commissioners' breakfast. Also, I thought it was great to have the young Cub Scouts come out here and do the pledge. That was so awesome.
They were great.
It's good to see that. And the last thing is, let's see, oh yeah, Happy Hanukkah, starting yesterday. I believe yesterday was the first day of Hanukkah. Right. So that's all I got. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Councilor Freeman.
Let's see, I think we've talked about the tree lighting, the parade. The only thing I'd add about the parade is please remember not to block the sidewalks with your chairs. Make sure you put them off so you're not blocking anyone that may need access to the sidewalks. On Saturday, it's obviously the parade's at night so we can see all the beautiful lights, but just a reminder, if you're out walking either in the morning or in the evening, just be sure that you're well lit up or you've got a safety vest on, and that would go for your animals as well. I've seen several people walking, I know lit up, sorry, I know. I was trying to think of another word and it just didn't come to me in time, but I see a lot of people walking, highly visible, thank you.
There we go.
That I see people walking both early in the morning and at night, and they are not highly visible, and they have their dogs on leashes, and they're not visible, and so I just, in safety, and we just need to make sure that you're well seen so we can see you when we're driving. If you want to attend a lot of the meetings this month, please check the city website because a lot of them are canceled already. The Planning Commission meeting is already canceled for December. Stormwater meeting, West Keizer was already canceled, and then the Volunteer Coordinating Committee has been canceled for December, but we are still recruiting for volunteers. We have openings on the Keizer Points of Interest, the Public Arts Commission, and the Parks Board, and all that information is located on the city website for when your application is due for our January meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last Saturday, I attended City Dance Theater's holiday recital, The Snowman. I'm sure that's not the exact title, but anyway, it was very interesting. A lot of our Keizer citizens were there, and it was a lot of fun. In terms of the Keizer Heritage Center, we are getting our membership drive pulled together for 2019, and there has been a little bit of a snafu with PayPal, but we will get that resolved tomorrow morning. But if you understand and value the Keizer Heritage Center as a cultural center for Keizer, I really encourage you to go to their website and to become a member, because it is a very valuable asset of our community. Also related to that, we're having our Heritage Center Christmas celebration on December 15th from 1 to 5. Santa will be there, and it'll just be a nice community gathering. So please come to that. We have the Southeast Keizer Neighborhood Association meeting this Thursday. That one has not been canceled, so please come to that. And there's a lot to be discussed there. Last Friday at McNary, we had what was called a Give Back Friday in our advisory classes, and each class was given the task of putting together some kind of service activity. And I love this because that is one of our three main tenets in our motto for Keizer is volunteerism. And so we are getting that value built up in the schools. And so they did a variety of things. Sometimes some of them were outside collecting trash around the neighborhoods. Some of them wrote letters to servicemen. Some of them, it's just a huge variety of things. And so that was an exciting thing to see, all the young people getting involved in that. And just there are always opportunities abounding, and nothing improves life better, I think, than getting involved in some kind of service opportunity. So I'd encourage you to look to your various resources to do something like that, especially this season. Also wanted to say a big thank you to those of you who are either making the effort to put up Christmas lights or to even pay somebody to do it. It really makes our community wonderful. And yes, we have the Gubser lights and that whole celebration, but all of our neighborhoods in Keizer are doing something. And I just really appreciate the efforts that go into that, because I know it is not easy. I haven't put mine up yet. And it requires a lot of work. And I just want to say that I, as a community member, really appreciate that. So thank you for that. The holiday calendar on the city is a really great resource for this time of year. I just went to it tonight, just on the Keizer.org. You just put in the search holiday calendar, and I found everything that I needed to know on that, and that's a great resource. In addition, there's lots going on with churches and other community organizations that are not on the calendar. So again, it's a time of year that there's plenty of things going on, and so I would encourage you to get involved in whatever way you can. So I think that is about all I have.
All right, thank you very much. And Councilor Ryan, happy birthday tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Okay, I'm pretty short and sweet tonight. I just want to, I've got a lot of upcoming meetings, and then the holiday festivities will be exciting. And a reminder to, I think it's Roland, that we both, by the end of the year, have an observation for the court, or the Pure Court. Yeah, that we need to get done. So I just want to remind you, because I forgot, so I thought you might have also, but I'll report on that on the next.
No, our main, it's our
The
judge.
Is it the
Municipal
judge? Yes, thank you.
Municipal, yeah.
The judge. And then, so there's two, there's the actual court, and then there's the kids' court also. So, but because of the holiday schedule, it's a little bit different this month. So, and I will make a report on that following up on the 27th. And tonight I will meet with Tim to follow up and get those donations to the McNary Closet that have items that have been left behind that everyone gave me the blessing to take. And then I'm excited to see the next Civil War. I know us Beaver fans, if we have to say it's another building year, one more year, we might blow up. But congratulations to the Ducks. But our girls basketball is going to be a great game. So we've got a couple really good teams, and so it's going to be nice to have a good game. So I'll look forward to that. And Merry Christmas. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Youth Councilor Ferris.
Okay, so for CTEC, showcases are happening this week and as well as the next 2 weeks, where other high schools will be coming to CTEC, and every single program, including the ones that are coming out next fall, are showcasing little aspects of their program, hoping to get kids into the program, and it's really fun to see and participate in. So if anybody's interested, come one of those showcase days. It'll be amazing. December 13th through 15th, Councilor Anderson touched on this, the McNary Christmas concert with pretty much every McNary Performing Arts program is going to be performing at 7 p.m. each of those days. And the choir performance at the Capitol Rotunda will be on December 14th at 12 p.m. The College and Career Center at McNary is doing a big push to encourage students to complete financial aid applications. And currently 34% of graduating seniors have completed them. Our goal is to increase the number from 56% to 60% total this year, and mentors are still needed, but the mentors from the mentor program are going to be meeting with juniors and seniors this week. And I'd like to give a special thanks to Counselor Parsons for being one of the McNary mentors.
Excellent. So when does winter break start?
Last day is the 21st.
Yeah, the 21st.
Okay. So there's a little time yet. Yeah. Long haul to Christmas. All right, thank you so much. Just a couple things to add. I first want to say thank you to our Whitaker and Claggett Creek Middle School students for their help with the Keizer Network of Women Giving Baskets. They both had posts online about the work that they're doing, and I just want to thank our middle school students for their involvement hands-on with caring for their neighbors during the holiday season. Also, a shout out to Scout Troop 12, who was here tonight to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. They also did a service project at Country Glen Park on Saturday, pressure washing and cleaning around there. It looks fabulous. Thank you to our young students who are out there, and again, learning volunteerism hands-on. On the 20th, we met with Council President Parsons for the Keizer Little League Task Force regarding sustainability, continuity, and governance structure for the Keizer Little League Park area. I want to thank the city manager and our public works superintendent or director, Bill Lawyer, for being there for part of that conversation. We will meet again in January. And then on the 24th with Councilor Reed, we were busy decorating the Keizer Heritage Center, which looks very festive, getting ready for the 15th of this month for the open house. On last Monday, the 26th, went with Councilor Herrera to the Career Technical Education Center, CTEC Advisory Council, discussing how that council is going to function going forward. It's been evolving since the center opened, and we're looking at how we as advisors from various sectors within the community can continue to be effective in directing the work and bringing good input into the CTEC programs. On the 27th, SCATS, which is the Salem Keizer Area Transportation Study, we met and we were working on the updates to the Regional Transportation System Plan and some of the other documents for prioritizing projects going forward. On Saturday, I got to join with Crater out of Volcano Stadium to welcome Santa, who was helicoptered in, so to launch the holiday season in Keizer. And then coming up, so people have already mentioned tomorrow is the retirement celebration for Commissioner Carlson, followed by our tree lighting. On Wednesday, the SEDCOR, which is the Strategic Economic Development Corporation Board, will be meeting, followed by the monthly luncheon for SEDCOR, which is on the 12th. The League of Oregon Cities Board will be meeting on Thursday and Friday of this week. I will be going on Friday to my final board meeting as a member of that board. I'll be concluding my 3-year term on the board, and it's been an absolute pleasure being a part of the changes that have happened for the League of Oregon Cities. Sunday morning, we will have the Santa Breakfast at Keizer Fire District after the Saturday Night Lights Parade. And then on the 13th, the Chamber Rotary Holiday Luncheon, which is always a special treat featuring the musical talents of our young musicians. So that is all I've got for my report this time. So let's go then to other business, which is this time is provided to allow the mayor, city council members, or staff an opportunity to bring new or old matters before the council that are not on tonight's agenda. City manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tracy? What?
Surprised. I don't know if I've taken this from Shannon. Each year, each of our neighborhood associations is required to give their annual report, and the Southeast Keizers is due in December, but they've requested an extension to March to allow them to elect their new board, and so with the council's concurrence, could we extend their date to March?
Concurrence of the council to extend Southeast Keizer to March. So done. Yes. We concur.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim?
Nothing here, thank you.
Bill? Nate?
Nothing more.
Shannon?
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councilor Herrera, you have something to add?
One more thing, on the 15th after Keizer Heritage, is that open house at 6?
Keizer Heritage, 1 to 5.
Oh, good, perfect. Because after that, we have the Nutcracker at the Elsinore. I want to promote this.
Yep.
It's at 7:30. Have you never seen that? December 15th, 7:30. And come and watch. It's pretty good. And my grandkids are both dancing in it. They're both elves. So they've been working really hard on it, so. Buy your tickets. I promise I'd
Fabulous.
say that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Written communications, I don't have anything to add at this time. Agenda input, next Monday, December 10th, we will be meeting at 6 o'clock for a city council work session. Current council with our incoming councilors-elect, Elizabeth Smith and Dan Kohler, to talk about where we are, update on our city goals, and also an overview where we're at with some of the studies that are underway regarding our urban growth boundary. On December 17th, we will meet at 7 p.m. in regular session. And then in the new year, on January 7th, we will meet at 7 o'clock in regular session to administer the oath of office for our newly elected city council members and re-elected as well for Councilor Herrera and myself, and the election of the council president. That is all I have. Is there anything else for the good of the order? All right, the time is 9:50 and we are adjourned.